My name's Huey Buckley. Huey. This is a true story. This is something that happened to me quite a few years ago. One of my sons, Phineas, was working as a teacher up at Arakoon on Cape York. And I went up there to observe, learn, and see what it was like. Cape York's about 1,000 miles away from here, and it's different country, different people, different language. So different. And the people that have always owned that land are the Wick people, and they now live at a place called Arakoon, which is a community of Wick people. Now, I don't think the Wick people are all happy fellas and all live together happily. They don't. There's always been feuds in the Wick people's past, and probably will be in the future. And that's how all communities are, basically. Anyway, after I'd been up there a few weeks, maybe a couple of weeks, and done a bit of fishing with Phineas and some of his mates, the Aboriginals up there are full-blooded Aboriginals. They speak Wickmunga and broken English. They are the real Aboriginals. They're not white fellas that claim they're Aboriginal. They're fair dinkum Aboriginals, and they're really nice people. Anyway, I'd arranged to meet some of the old blokes in the underneath the Arts Centre at Arakoon one morning, and I actually just wanted to talk to them and find out, what they thought of things. And anyway, we'd been under the Arts Centre for half an hour or so, talking about animals, hunting, the old people, the white people, different things. They're smart people, just like anybody else, just like any other race of people. They have their ups and downs, ins and outs. Nothing is black and white. It's all different shades. Anyway, I asked one of the old blokes where I could get some spears from, because if I went through the Arts Centre, it's going to cost a lot of money. He said, I'll show you where you can get some spears, mate. But before I get to that, I better tell you what we were talking about. I was talking about the place I lived. I've lived here for about 50 years, and on this hill, and down the bottom of the hill. And this hill is quite a prominent hill. It looks at a very prominent mountain called Eerwah in that direction. Hill. Now this hill is like a pinprick. You can't, if you go off the hill, you look at the country in a different way. From here, you look at the country in one way, all the way around. You can see forever from here. Anyway, I asked them, because we had Powerlink, which is a huge conglomerate of linking power all over Queensland, and they have extraordinary powers, and they have unlimited money. They can do whatever they like. They wanted to put pylons right the way through the valley, right through here, and link up with pylons over there. So if that electricity supply is broken for some reason, they can come around this one. The only problem was it blocked off the view from here to Eerwah. So it was like, imagine erecting pylons at, say, Stonehenge. It's just, you can't do it, Anyway, I asked these blokes, I said, look, I live on a, this is getting back to Arakoon. I said, look, I live on this hill and very strange things have happened to me. And I explained to them what the hill looks like. It's a big, it's such a prominent hill, and every year at summer solstice, the sun climbs Eerwah, climbs along the top. It looks like a volcano from here, and right when it gets to the western end, it's summer solstice, and then it goes all the way back again. And that happens every single year, and it's been happening for the last 20,000 years, 60,000 years, who knows? I mean, I don't actually know how old Eerwah is. It's a volcanic plug, as far as I know. So it probably came out of the ground in the last big upheavals. So it's very old, and this has been happening forever. And not only does the sun come up out of Eerwah, but at winter solstice, the full moon comes up out of Eerwah, and it's it actually, you get your hairs rise off the back of your neck. It's a beautiful sight to see, and it's spooky. Anyway, I asked the boys when I was up at Arakoon, what do they think? Do they think that the old people that lived here, that were called the Kagulawali people, the Kagulawali clan, who spoke, their language is Cubby Cubby or Gubby Gubby. Nobody seems to know what it was called actually, if it was Cubby Cubby or Gubby Gubby, or both of them. And the Aboriginals still kind of argue about what it's called. So that's how you lose history so quickly, 200 or 300 years, and names get bastardized and things get twisted. So I asked them, what did they think that the old people that would have lived here would have known about the sun coming out of Eerwah and the moon coming out of Eerwah at winter solstice and summer solstice? And they all smiled amongst themselves and talking to Wickmunga, and one of the blokes said to me, matey, you're living on a Story Hill. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, it's a Story Hill, mate. It's a place of stories. They see what's happening. That everybody, the old people see everything, same as we see everything that happens in the country. They don't miss nothing. We don't miss nothing. So, of course they knew about the sun coming out of Eerwah. Of course they knew about the moon coming out of Eerwah. And they would have known that they were changes of the season. Of course they would have known. And they would have made that a sacred place. None of the women would be allowed on that hill. That would be a sacred hill. It's a story hill. And every generation they would have a storyteller, that the stories were passed down to him, and they would have corroborees and sing the stories, tell the stories, dance the stories, and so they would pass it on. You want to come up here? So I said, that's very interesting. I've had some really strange things happen to me on that Story Hill. And they said, well, that's why, because it's a holy place. It's big, spiritual place. So, hey, just keep quiet. So anyway, I got a couple of spears off one of the old blokes, and Woomera, and I asked them if I could get a feather headdress, because the Wick people, they're quite renowned for their dances and their feather headdresses that the dancers wear, and only the dancers wear these special feather headdresses. And no, you can't get one of them, they're special, only dancers have them. Anyway, a couple of days later I was at the airport leaving Arakoon, And the flight kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and I knew I'd miss my flight, connecting flight from Cairns to Brisbane. And by the time the flight was called, this young bloke ran up to me with a shoebox, and inside the shoebox was a dancer's feather headdress. And he said, the family has said, we've talked about you, and the family has said that you can have this feather headdress. It's very special. The bloke that owned it, the dancer that owned it, he committed suicide a month ago, and we want you to have his feather headdress. And I went, wow. And Phineas and I looked at each other. We knew this was pretty special, and I thanked them very much. Got on the flight, got to Cairns, and all the way to Cairns, I kept thinking about the feather headdress that was sitting on my lap, and how special it was. Now stop it. Stop it. Anyway, got to Cairns, and yes, I definitely missed my flight. I rang up my wife, and she booked me in because I had no money. I'd spent all my money on the spears and stuff, and baskets. So yes, my wife got me a room in one of the hotels. It was right on the very top of the hotel. So next morning, coming down in the lift, I met this rather dapper-looking bloke. Poor old Bailey, he's got a bit of a limp. I met this bloke in the lift, and he looked at the conduit, the white conduit I was holding. It's about 8 or 9 foot high. He said, what you got in there, mate? He asked me, was I holidaying? And I said, yes, I was holidaying. I'd been up on the Cape to Arracoon. And he said, what have you got in your tube? And I said, spears. I never go anywhere without my spears. And we laughed at that. Anyway, I ordered a taxi. The taxi came along. It was just a little tiny cab. I could hardly fit it in myself, let alone put spears in it, 9 foot long. And he said to me, you can't put that in the cab, mate. I can't have that sticking out the window. So I said, he said, you'll have to get another cab. So I just got out of his cab, and the bloke that I'd met in the lift came along in a hire car, a station wagon. He said, everything all right, mate? And I said, oh no, I can't take my spears out to the airport in this cab. He won't let me. He said, that's all right. Pop in with me. I'll take you out there. And got plenty of room. So I got in there, put the spears and my baggage in the back of the car, and off we went to the airport. And it turns out that he lived across the valley from me, just across there, about 3 miles as the crow flies, or maybe even 2. So we had a chat, and he wanted to know if I wanted him to give me a lift from the airport, because he said he had a car at Brisbane Airport. And I said, no, one of my sons were going to pick me up. So that's where I think I've got to. This is chapter 2. Got to the airport, he said, I've got to go and drop the car off at the hire place. See you later. And anyway, I went in and there was a huge queue up to the baggage check-in, and a lot of German backpackers and behind me. By the time I got to the baggage check-in, the blokes, I got to the check-in, and the bloke said to me, there was a young bloke behind the counter. He said, what have you got in your that tube, mate? And I said, spears, Aboriginal spears. He said, oh, you can't take that on the flight. And I said, why not? They're all wrapped up. They'll be put in the hold. No, he goes, no, you can't take them on the flight. And all these German tourists behind me, they were starting to mumble, come on, and stop holding us up. And just then the telephone rang on this bloke's desk, and he picked up the phone, blah, 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 blah. Put it down, put a notice up, this desk is closed, please go to the next desk. I went, oh, great. So all the German tourists, they hurried off through all the roped-off sections. That left me the last person. So I picked up my bag, my spears, and I'm right at the very back of the queue again, and a very nice looking young lady walked past me in her a suit, you know, airline suit, and she said, follow me, I'm opening up another checkout. Oh, great. So that meant I followed her, and she opened up another check-in, and that means I was right at the front of the queue again, and everybody else was behind me. I thought, that's good. Anyway, she never even asked me what was in the conduit tube. She just checked me in, gave me a boarding pass, and that was it. So, and I had the shoe box with a feather headdress in it. That's all I did have, and everything else was checked in to go in the hold. So I waited for the flight. That took a while. Boarding the flight, there was two queues. One queue boarding the aeroplane, the jet at the front, and one queue joining the aeroplane at the back. I was doing it at the back, and somehow I was the first person there. And I looked over on the other queue, and it was the bloke that had given me the lift out to the airport. We sort of waved to each other, and we both got on the flight at the same time. I thought, oh, that's a funny coincidence. Anyway, I sat down, had the flight to Brisbane. All the time going to Brisbane with this shoebox with a feather headdress inside, I kept thinking about black feathers. I knew for some really weird reason that the clan that used to live on the Story Hill, my Story Hill now, used to have black feathers. Their totem was black feathers. How I came to that conclusion, I've got no idea. Anyway, got to Brisbane. Bring it here. We got to Brisbane, and the lady, the hostess, got on the tannoy. She said, well, people at the back of the plane, please remain seated. We're going to disembark from the front door. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll be last off the plane, that's all right. Anyway, we waited about 5-10 minutes. Then she came on the tannoy again, and she said, I'm sorry, we're having trouble with the front door or the steps or something. We are now going to be disembarking from the back door. So would you all please disembark from the back door? That made me the first off the aeroplane. So I went down the steps, looked behind, and everything was clear in front of me. I was the first person off the aeroplane. Walked across the tarmac into the airport, and it was totally deserted. I've never seen the airport so deserted. It's usually crowded. But it was a Sunday. Anyway, I walked straight to the baggage pickup, and the first thing I saw was my tube propped against one of the big columns that hold the roof up. And I went, wow, that's pretty good. So I grabbed the spears. Bring it here, little boy. Come on. So Dale's, it's definitely, he wants to be in this. So I picked up my spears, turned around, and the first thing coming out of along the carousel was my bag. No other bags, just mine. I went, wow, this is terrific. So picked up my bag, picked up the spears. I had the shoebox under my arm. I walked out of was walking out of the airport, and somebody stepped in front of me and said, "Are you Mr. Huey Buckley?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Your son has rang the bus company. I'm the driver from the bus company. We've been waiting for you." I said, "Oh, great." So he said, "Yes, just follow me, and won't take a second." So I followed him, got into the bus. There was only one other passenger there who'd been waiting from the previous flight, so he'd been waiting about half an hour. Got in. As soon as I got in, sat down, put my spears on the seat, the shoebox on my lap, and off we went, straight through Brisbane. No traffic. There was huge queues of traffic coming the other way into Brisbane, but nothing going out of Brisbane. So it was a very quick trip to the Ettamogah pub. Get to the Ettamogah pub, the bus pulls in, and then I saw my youngest son Tasman pull in with his car. I got off the bus, into his car, and we drove off. And we talked about my trip. I told him about the feather headdress, and he said, "That's a pretty big deal, Dad, you know, getting somebody who's committed suicide there, feather headdress." I said, "Tasman, I know it's a big deal, but that's what happened." Anyway, we got home, hugs and kisses all around, and then, and I'll show you what happened now. Next. So, here are the spears. These are the actual spears. As you can see, I'm 6 foot. This is a good 1.5 foot up above me. There's a long one, and they had long points on them. They were about that long. And here's the barb on the end, the hooking barb. And they got emu flight feathers, which have all disappeared. Moths and stuff have got to them. They're pretty old now. And this is a smaller one. Same point, about that long, with the barb there. It sticks out. It's quite very sharp. I mean, what's that? These are for wallabies. They don't have many kangaroos on the Cape. They have a lot of wallabies. Anyway, I had them down here on the table, on this very table, just like. So I had them on the table just like you're looking at them now, with the points sticking about like that, because I didn't want to have the points touch anything because they would break. And I was sitting at a desk. We had a desk over here. And I was sitting at the desk at the computer writing up my travels on Cape York. And I was sitting in a chair, and suddenly a king parrot flew into the room and circled above the table, just like that, squawking. Now, I never had a king parrot do that before. I was sitting at the desk right here, and it circled around my head, screaming the whole time, and then, inexplicably, it flew around in a circle and came in like this. I don't know if you can see my hand. It came in like this, and it went and hit these two spears, and it got stuck, one on one wing, the other on the other wing, the points going piercing the wings, and it hung there with its wings out like that, screaming. And then it struggled and dropped to the floor, then with the points sticking out of its wings, close to its body, took off again, took off into the air, came straight over and straight at my face. And you know, I've got this parrot coming straight for my face, and all I could do was protect my face like this. And then I grabbed the parrot as carefully as I could, and I didn't want to hurt it. I was just completely amazed what was happening, and the screams of the parrot were going off in my mind. And we had the feather headdress, and here it is, the actual feather headdress. It was all new then. It was on the table, and suddenly I've got, and I was holding the parrot for, you know, a few seconds, and then it struggled out of my hand, took off, went out of the door screaming the whole way, and the last time I saw it was just sort of going over there. But what was more than amazing was I had a handful of black tail feathers, and here they are. This is a basket woven by the Wick people. As you can see, it's beautifully made. So I call it white feather, black feather. So I just, you know, it was just a weird thing to happen. So many coincidences. And anyway, I wrote a story about it, and I'll show you some of the photos I took straight after this little episode. And not only that, but at the same time this was all happening, Powerlink was going to put power lines between this hill, the Story Hill, and Eerwah, which is over there. And for some reason this was just like a message to me. And I wrote quite a few letters, and to actually the Prime Minister at the time, Aboriginal elders, about the fact that this was an old Story Hill, and Powerlink were going to put pylons between here and Eerwah, which would actually negate. I mean, imagine watching the sun come up through power pylons from Eerwah, you know, from here and Eerwah. So it was like somebody going to desecrate Stonehenge or something like that, with a power line right over the top and of Stonehenge. Can you imagine that happening? And so I managed to actually stop this happening. And I do believe it was sort of the conviction of this just one thing happening to me. It wasn't just one thing, it was a series of things that made me actually sort of realize or believe that maybe if you dance in the same place for thousands and thousands of years, maybe you can leave somehow you can leave a remnant of that dance in that place. And it's sometimes other people can see that, and there is no doubt. I mean, I'm not a crazy sort of believer in all sorts of things, but sometimes you have to go, look, you know, something is going on. Something something beyond, like Shakespeare said, more things in heaven than earth. And I sort of believe that. I do believe that. And, you know, and this was one of those things. I mean, how many coincidences can you have before it's not a coincidence, before something is guiding your hand? Now, this is just a short take on this story. It's actually longer than this. It's the story I've written about it, White Feather, Black Feather, or Coincidences, actually. It's called Coincidences, White Feather, Black Feather. And I wrote this story. It's not particularly long. It's a PDF. I guess it's free, you know, to anybody who wants it, or if they'd like to